They called me a nobody for 3 years, made me swallow every insult in silence, and then threw me out of the house, never suspecting I was hiding a $450 million secret. And when I came back in a Bugatti, it wasn't for revenge. It was for the truth. People stop choosing their words at the moment they decide you don't matter. I didn't realize that the day I won the lottery, or even when I saw the numbers on my phone and felt my knees give out beneath me. I understood it later, standing in the kitchen of my in-laws' mansion, holding a cheap plastic bag of groceries, while my wife, Vanessa, barely looked at me and said, "Couldn't you at least buy something decent? And don't use the front entrance. We have guests." She said it casually, like I wasn't her husband, just something dragged in from the street. I wasn't always garbage to them. At first, I was just inconvenient. A mechanic with skilled hands and a worn-out jacket, the kind of man their daughter fell in love with just to prove a point. My mom sewed clothes for people. I fixed cars. I only ever wanted two things: for her to stop counting pennies for medicine and to live in a home where no one was ashamed of me. I didn't make it in time for her. The night everything changed, I left the hospital after her latest tests. It was cold, raining, the kind that seeps into your bones. I stopped at a gas station for coffee, and the cashier smiled. "Go on, take a ticket. The jackpot's so big, even God would raise an eyebrow." I almost refused, but I remembered my mom. Sometimes you have to grab chance by the hand, because life won't knock twice. So I bought it. The next morning, when I checked the numbers, everything went silent, like the world had sunk underwater. I checked again and again, then sat on the workshop floor, unable to breathe. $450 million, the kind of money that either gives you wings or rots your soul. I drove to the hospital to tell her first, but she never woke up. Her heart gave out that same night. I sat beside her bed, holding the ticket, realizing it was the most useless money in the world. It couldn't buy me one more morning with her, couldn't bring back her voice. Don't let it harden you, Daniel. Poverty isn't the worst thing. An empty heart is. After the funeral, I told no one, especially not Vanessa. Not because I wanted secrets, but because I'd heard her days earlier. I love him, I think. But sometimes I'm embarrassed. My husband smells like engine oil. After I think, something inside me broke. If I told her about the money, I'd never know who she loved, me or the number. So I stayed silent. I set up an anonymous trust, created the Mary Carter Foundation, donated quietly to hospitals, to kids like me, to people no one noticed. From the outside, nothing changed. Same truck, same job, same boots, and silence. The first year I thought it was temporary, that Vanessa would remember me, that her parents would stop looking at me like a stain. But money, even unseen, reveals people. My father-in-law, Richard Hayes, loved to say, "Daniel's a good guy, hard-working. We need people like him." Like I was something lesser. My mother-in-law handed me plates without asking if I'd eaten. Vanessa corrected me in public, avoided me, laughed once. Without me, he'd still live in a garage. Everyone laughed. I smiled too. When humiliation becomes routine, you learn to smile while something inside you bleeds out. The only ones who treated me like a human were Emily and her father, George. She cleaned the house, he took care of the garden. Sometimes we drank tea in the staff kitchen. She laughed, real laughter. And for the first time all day, I could breathe. "You're a good man, Daniel. You shouldn't tolerate this," she said once. I shrugged. I still think it can be fixed." She looked at me like she already knew it couldn't. The final blow came in year 3, a charity event, the kind where people talk about kindness on camera and humiliate staff off it. Vanessa told me not to come upstairs. "Not really your look." I stayed downstairs. Then chaos. Her mother's bracelet was missing. They searched the staff. Emily stood pale while Richard shouted, "You can't trust people from that level." I stepped in, said it was wrong. And then Vanessa, calm and cold, said, "You defend them because you're one of them. Pack your things, Daniel. I'm done pretending this is a marriage." I didn't argue. They packed my life into black trash bags, my jacket, my tools, my mother's photo album, like I'd never belonged there. That night, I slept in a hotel. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "Enough. Prepare everything. I'm going back tomorrow." "What car?" he asked. I paused. The one they'll never forget. Emily walked down the narrow path from the house, her green uniform stained with dirt, clutching a small cardboard box filled with the few things she owned, like even that could be taken from her. George lay on the grass, pale, his face twisted in pain. One hand pressed to his side, while the other reached into the air, as if trying to hold on to consciousness. On the terrace stood Vanessa, her mother, and her younger brother, Nathan, while Richard Hayes kept shouting, his voice sharp and cutting. I don't remember getting out of the car. One second I was behind the wheel, the next I was running. I dropped to my knees beside George and touched his shoulder. "George, can you hear me?" He winced, barely recognizing me. "Daniel, don't. It doesn't matter." "It matters to me." I slipped off my jacket, placed it under his head, already reaching for my phone to call an ambulance, when I heard, "Daniel?" I looked up. Vanessa. Her face wasn't shocked, just confused, like she couldn't process what she was seeing. Not me, the car, the suit, the version of me that didn't fit her world anymore. Is that your car?" she asked. I turned back to George. "The ambulance is on the way." Emily set the box down and knelt beside us, her lips trembling though her voice stayed steady. "They pushed him," she said quietly. "He stood up for me. They said I stole something. I told them I didn't, and then George tried to defend me." She didn't finish. She didn't have to. I stood up slowly. "Who pushed him?" Richard Hayes stepped forward, his face red with anger. "Don't you dare make a scene. This is private property." "You pushed an old man to the ground," I said calmly, "and now you pretend it's nothing." He scoffed. "You? In my house?" For a moment, everything went silent. Not around me, but inside me. Because something finally clicked. For 3 years, I had mistaken endurance for love, silence for strength, humiliation for patience. Not anymore. The next day, the sky was painfully clear, the kind of bright that feels almost offensive when everything inside you is collapsing. I sat behind the wheel of a black Bugatti, staring at the road to the house where I had spent 3 years convincing myself that love meant endurance. Now I knew the truth. Love is safety, respect, a place where no one sends you through the back door. I didn't come back in that car to impress them. I came back because I refused to return as the man they thought I was. Not the husband they threw out in trash bags. Not the poor relative they were ashamed of. I came back as who I really was, calm, unshakable, and beyond their reach. As I turned into the driveway, the gates opened instantly. The guard didn't even check the plates. For people like them, a luxury car always looks like dignity. I hadn't even turned off the engine when I saw it. The same scene, the same cruelty. and something dark and burning rose inside me. In front of me stood the woman I once would have done anything for, worked myself to exhaustion, lived in scarcity, started from nothing, forgiven what should never have been forgiven. But love doesn't die in one moment. It fades quietly, from constant humiliation, from small betrayals repeated every day. You told your friend you were embarrassed by a man who smells like engine oil, I said calmly. And then you spent 3 years proving it. Something flickered in Vanessa's eyes. She remembered. I didn't mean it like that. That's exactly how you meant it. The ambulance arrived. As paramedics lifted George onto the stretcher, Nathan, her younger brother, the only one in that house who still had something human left in him, stepped forward and said quietly, "Mom, it was Emily. You told her to move everything to the back storage because guests were coming. You just forgot." Silence fell instantly. "Nathan, be quiet," his mother snapped. But it was too late. Emily closed her eyes, not from victory, but from exhaustion. The kind that comes after being humiliated for no reason. I looked at her, then at George being carried away, and realized something simple. I didn't need to prove anything anymore. Not with money, not with words, not with anger. A person isn't tested by how much they can endure. A person is tested by who they choose to protect when they finally have the power to walk away. I turned slightly. "Add 2 things," I said to my lawyer, who had just stepped out of the car behind me. "Full coverage for George's treatment, and compensation for Emily, for wrongful termination, immediately." Richard Hayes let out a bitter laugh. "You think you can destroy us?" I looked at him spokojno, without anger. "If I wanted to destroy you, I would have done it quietly a long time ago. I'm just done letting you hurt people." Vanessa stepped closer. Her voice broke. "Daniel, please, we can fix this." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. No fear, no need to be accepted, no желание быть удобным. "You're not my home anymore," I said softly. He frowned. "What are you even talking about?" At that exact moment, another car pulled into the driveway. My lawyer stepped forward, opening a folder. "Good afternoon," he said calmly. "I represent the interests of Mr. Daniel Carter." Richard smirked. "Interests? The only thing this guy owns is a toolbox." The folder opened. Then this may come as a surprise. My client is the sole beneficiary of a trust that holds controlling interest in several of your company's key contracts, as well as the final rights to this property following your recent refinancing. Silence. Heavy. Absolute. Vanessa went pale. "No, this is a joke." "It's not a joke," I said. She looked at me, wide-eyed, searching for something familiar, but all she found was distance. "You can't... Where did you..." I held her gaze. "I won the lottery 3 years ago," I said quietly. $450 million. I just chose not to tell you." Her mother gripped the railing to stay upright. Richard whispered, "That's impossible." "No," I said. "What's impossible is pretending love and convenience are the same thing." Vanessa took a step toward me. "If this is true, why didn't you tell me?" I looked at her a moment longer than I should have, because that question mattered once. "Because I needed to know," I said finally, "whether you loved me or what I could become." The answer had been clear for a long time. I watched something inside her collapse. Not loudly, not dramatically, just gone. That's how illusions die. Quiet, almost polite, until there's nothing left. "You were never nothing to me," Vanessa said, But her voice didn't believe itself anymore. It was just the wrong people around us. I almost smiled. People always find beautiful excuses when the truth becomes unbearable. No, I said calmly. The people were exactly right. I took one step back. Small but honest. The first one in 3 years. You just chose them over me. She froze. That's not fair. You don't understand the pressure I was under? My family, expectations. I understand perfectly. I cut in, quiet but sharp. I just stopped lying to myself. Silence followed, the kind that exposes everything. Richard stood there too, for once, quiet. A man who built his life on control, suddenly had none, because power had shifted, but not the way he thought. This was never about money. What you had, I said, looking straight at him, was confidence. Confidence that I would stay exactly where you put me. A beat. You were wrong. My lawyer stepped forward, but I stopped him. Not now. This wasn't about documents. It was about an ending. Vanessa moved closer, carefully, as if I might disappear. Daniel, please. We can fix this. We can start over. There it was. The sentence I waited years to hear. The one I suffered for. And now, it meant nothing. I shook my head. You can only start over where something real existed. We didn't have that. Her eyes widened. We had convenience. That hit harder than any scream. Truth always does. I loved you, she whispered. I looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, felt nothing. Not anger, not pain, just clarity. No, I said quietly. You loved who I was trying to become, not who I was. Panic crept into her voice. Please, don't do this. Do what? I asked. Finally stop pretending? That broke her. Not the tears, the realization. Too late. I turned away, and something inside me finally settled. For 3 years, I thought strength meant staying, enduring, forgiving what should never be forgiven. I was wrong. Strength is leaving without needing them to understand why. You're just walking away? She cried. I stopped for a second, didn't turn around. No, I walked away 3 years ago. And this time, I didn't look back. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and consequences. I sat in the hallway, staring at a closed door that mattered more than anything behind me. Emily sat next to her hands clasped as if she were holding herself in place. He's strong, I said. She nodded. He's always been careful, never caused trouble. Today, he couldn't stay quiet. I looked at her. And for the first time in a long while, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. Silence is easy, I said. It keeps things comfortable. But there are moments when silence isn't peace. A beat. It's betrayal. She looked at me differently. You're not like them. I exhaled quietly. I just spent too long trying to be. The door opened. The doctor stepped out. He's stable. Fracture. Some internal trauma, but no immediate danger. Emily closed her eyes and finally let go. Relief doesn't scream, it collapses. I stood. Everything will be covered. Treatment, recovery, all of it. She blinked. Why? I thought about it. About money, power, choice. Because someone has to stop this, I said. A pause. And because when I had nothing, you didn't look away. She lowered her eyes. You always had more than they did. I didn't answer, because now I understood. And this time, it wasn't about money. In the hallway, I saw her again. Emily. But she wasn't the same woman who once stood there in a worn green uniform, holding a box like even that could be taken from her. Now she stood straight, calm, composed. Her clothes were simple but precise. Clean lines, quiet confidence, the kind you don't buy. She was talking to another woman, listening closely, the way people do when they understand pain, not from stories, but from living through it. I didn't interrupt. I just watched. Because the strongest changes don't need announcements. They just become visible. She noticed me anyway, turned, smiled, walked over. "You're late again," she said lightly. I shook my head. "No, I got here early. I just stood outside for 5 minutes." She tilted her head. "Why?" I thought about it. Everything that had changed, everything that hadn't. "Because I'm still getting used to walking in through the front door," I said. She smiled, but there was something deeper behind it now. No pity, no distance, just recognition. We stood there for a moment in silence, and for once, it didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. "George is asking about you," she said. "He says you still owe him tea." I exhaled quietly. "Good. That means he's getting stronger." "He is. Stubborn too." "Yeah," I said. "That helped?" A pause, and she looked at me differently. Not up, not down. Just equal. "You changed a lot," she said. I considered that. Maybe, or maybe I just stopped staying where I didn't belong. She held my gaze. "And now?" I glanced down the hallway. People passing, doors opening, lives moving forward. "Now I choose where I stay," I said quietly. She nodded, like that was enough. Like she understood the cost of it. Somewhere behind the doors, machines beeped softly. Life, fragile and stubborn, refusing to stop. I looked at her again, and for the first time in years, there was no weight in my chest. No need to prove anything. No need to endure anything. Just space. Clean. Quiet. Mine. "Come on," she said. "Before he decides you're avoiding him again." I almost smiled and followed her down the hallway. Not behind, not ahead. Beside her. A few months later, I stood in front of a house that didn't need to prove anything. No gates, no guards, no cameras deciding who was worthy to enter. Just a door, and people inside who didn't measure your value before letting you in. The foundation had grown quietly, the way real things do. No headlines, no staged photos. Just work, real work. People getting help before they had to beg for it. George walked again, slow, stubborn, but on his own feet. Every step looked like a victory he refused to celebrate out loud. Emily ran the program now. Not perfectly, not flawlessly, but honestly. And that was enough. Sometimes I found myself watching it all from a distance, not because I didn't belong, but because I finally understood I didn't need to hold everything together to be part of it. One afternoon, I got a message. Vanessa, just my name. No explanation, no excuses. I stared at the screen longer than I expected, then locked the phone and put it away. Not out of anger, not out of pride, just because it didn't matter anymore. That was the difference. Forgiveness isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's choosing not to return to the place that broke you. I stepped outside. The air was still, clean. For a long time, I thought money changed everything. It doesn't. It just removes the illusion that you have no choice. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. I used to believe love meant staying, enduring, proving your worth to people who had already decided you didn't have any. I was wrong. Love is simple. It doesn't humiliate you. It doesn't test how much pain you can survive. It doesn't ask you to become smaller just to fit someone else's world. Love feels like safety, like respect, like being seen and not needing to fight for it. I looked back once, Not at the house I lost, but at the man I used to be. The one who stayed too long, who kept quiet, who believed patience would turn into love. He wasn't weak, he was just hoping in the wrong place. I nodded to him anyway, because without him, I wouldn't have learned how to leave. Inside, someone laughed, real, unfiltered, alive. I turned back toward the door. No hesitation, no doubt. And this time, I didn't walk in trying to belong. I walked in knowing I already did. Because in the end, it was never about the money. It was about the moment you realize you deserve better and finally choose it.